Okay, so for today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to find quadratic equations when you're given the roots. It's basically going backwards from factoring to actually getting the solutions, to having the solutions and going back to the equation. So a root is just a solution to the quadratic equation, and a factor is just an algebraic expression. There's two different ways to do it. I'm going to show you both ways. One you might find easier than the other. It's up to you how you choose to do it. One of the ways is to set each root equal to x. Okay, this is going to be this one. Set each root equal to x. You're going to find the factors that give each solution. You're going to multiply those two factors together, and then you're going to write the equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, because it's an equation that we're writing. The other option is to this one, to find the sum of the roots, then find the product of the roots, and then write the quadratic equation in the form of ax squared minus the sum of x plus the product equal to 0. If you have any fractions, you're going to multiply through by the least common denominator to eliminate them. So I'm going to show you both ways to do this. And again, you can choose which way is easier. On the first one, a quadratic equation is roots of 2 and negative 5. What's the equation? Well, the first thing it said to do on the first part was set each equation, or set each root, sorry, equal to x, which means x equals 2 and x equals negative 5. Well, if x was equal to 2, what equation did you solve to get that? And that's where you would say, well, if x equals 2, then x minus 2 must be equal to 0, because by adding 2 on both sides, I'd get the answer of 2. If x equals negative 5, then the equation that was solved to get that answer must have been x plus 5 equal to 0, because if I subtract 5 from both sides, I get x equals negative 5. Basically what you're doing is the equation that you're using is the opposite sign of what the root is. Then what you're supposed to do is take each factor, which means take the x minus 2, take the x plus 5, set it equal to 0. You're going to now have to multiply this out, and you're going to multiply this out by FOIL, which is going to give you x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10, or x squared plus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. This is the answer, or the equation. So that's the one way to do it. Here's the other way to do it. You might find this a little bit faster, a little bit simpler, but it's your choice. The sum of the roots would be 2 plus negative 5, which equals negative 3. The product of the roots equals 2 times negative 5, which equals negative 10. The equation that you're going to set up would be x squared minus the sum of x plus the product equal to 0. Well, the sum is negative 3. The product is negative 10. When you fix all these double signs, it really becomes x squared, double negatives become plus 3x, plus a negative is just minus a 10 equal to 0. And now you've got the exact same answer. One is by finding the factors and multiplying it out, and one is by finding the sum and the product. You choose. Here's the next example. Solutions of 0 and negative 6, just like having the roots. What's the equation? I will do it the sum and product way first. So the sum of the roots, if you add the roots together, you get negative 6. The product of the roots, if you multiply them together, you get 0. Your equation is going to be x squared minus the sum of x plus the product equal to 0. Well, the sum, you're going to put in a negative 6. The product, you're going to put in a 0. If you simplify this equation, you're going to get x squared, double negatives means plus 6x, plus 0 doesn't do you any good, equal to 0, and that finishes off your equation. Very simple. Let's do it the other way. The other way says, let's set each root equal to 0, which means I've got x to be 0 and I've got x to be negative 6. Well, when x is 0, you could have an equation similar to this. You could leave it as how it is, or you could say, well, if x, then x plus 0 equals 0. For the other side, you could say x plus 6 equals 0. You can then multiply these two factors together, x plus 0, x plus 6. When you FOIL this out, you're going to get x squared plus 6x plus 0x plus 0. And when you combine like terms, you just get x squared plus 6x equals 0. Same exact answers. Choose to do the sum and the products or choose to do the roots and multiply together. Doesn't matter. I think there's one more example. So now I've got some fractions here. If we do it, I'll do it the first way first. So we know that x equals a half, and we know that x equals 3, which means this equation came from x minus 1/2 equal to 0. This came from x minus 3 equal to 0. If I now multiply these together by FOIL, I get x squared minus 3x minus 1/2 x plus 3/2. And when I combine like terms, here's where you have to be careful. I'm going to come over here for a second. Negative 3 over 1 equals how many over 2? Because I need to get common denominators. Hopefully you see that if I've got negative 3 over 1, if I multiply both top and bottom by 2, then negative 3 over 1 is just the same thing as negative 6 over 2. So what's going to happen is I'm going to actually replace this negative 3. Now I'm going to erase this, so hopefully this doesn't mess you up. I'm going to replace this with 6/2. So it's going to be x squared minus 6/2 x minus 1/2 x plus 3 over 2, which means when I come down here, I've got x squared minus 7/2 x plus 3/2 equals 0. And then it said that you can't have any fractions in your problem. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply everything by the least common denominator, which happens to be 2. And by doing that, you end up with this. 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 equal to 0. This right here is your final answer. We're going to do this by the sum and product also, but you still have to be able to add fractions to do this. So I'm going to get a new page here. X equals a half and x equals 3. So let me get new page. Okay, so same problem. X equals a half and x equals 3. So the sum of these guys means I have to take 1/2 plus 3. Well, that is 3 1/2. 3 1/2 is the same as 7/2, right? 3 times 2 plus 1. Okay. If I now take the product and I do 1/2 times 3, it's really 3 over 1. Top times top is 3, bottom times bottom is 2. And then the equation becomes x squared minus the sum of x plus the product. Well, the sum is going to be 7/2. The product is going to be 3/2. Again, we still are not allowed to have fractions. The least common denominator is 2. And the equation that comes out becomes 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 equal to 0. And if I am correct, that's the exact same equation that we got on the page before. 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 equals 0. Okay? There it is. Good luck.